stands for Certified Specialized Sports Dietitian.
Yeah, so she's worked very hard. She's been working with our athletes for what now, about 7 years?
No, much more than that.
Is it
That
that
doesn't remember, you were still a personal
I
trainer.
probably still had brown hair back then, yeah. Yeah, for a long time.
About 10, maybe
10, I was going to say, yeah, it might be as long as 10 years. She's done a phenomenal job. Very, very well known in the community. She's certainly, worked her way up not only as a dietitian, licensed dietitian, but also as a business person, getting herself out there and marketing herself. But she's got some great knowledge, and I explained to her this is a little bit more sophisticated audience today. So you're going to do your spiel, but then we're going to hit you with some questions after.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to say that I always just throw a few little things together. I was going to make it up as I go along. Backed up by science though.
Yes.
So I've already prepared anything because I think, especially because you are a little bit of a higher level audience, get what you need out of this and ask questions. That's the best way to handle. But I'll start talking so questions will come up as well, because we decided on the topic being pitfalls, typically nutrition pitfalls for racing. I like to call it racing and training as well, because really you should race like you train, or train like you race. In other words, what you plan to do on your race days, you should be doing while you're training. So if, just like anything else, you don't want to do anything new on race day, your nutrition probably out of all those things should be the most important thing, not to do anything new on race day, unless you want to be sitting in the bathroom the rest of the race. Any of you guys have GI issues? Because that's one of my specialties actually. Only one out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, I do.
And some people don't really want to admit it.
Oh, only one. Oh, okay.
Okay. I said only one because you know what?
I don't know why.
60%, typically, 60% of athletes struggle with GI distress when they're trying to eat and their heart rate is high. So some of the things I work on is teaching your body how to actually digest food and the right kinds of food, which is what dietitians will help you with when your heart rate is at a high level. So Sam, not to put the spotlight on you, but what are some of your issues?
It's mostly after racing like a half marathon or a 10K, and only one time after a really, really hard time trial. Just my digestive system is just shot.
Shut down,
like Thanksgiving Day marathon,
Yeah.
or half marathon, like I was out for 3 days. I mean, it was.
Do you get dehydrated? Do you think it's
No,
dehydration?
it's not dehydration. It's only in super hard efforts. I think just all the blood leaves my gut, and this is not even trying to take in nutrition at the time.
Because sometimes those symptoms can be pointing to dehydration, even though you may not realize it. But anyway, and again,
I haven't figured out
everyone
yet.
is individual. So even if he thinks he may be drinking enough water or getting enough electrolytes or got the right electrolyte balance, everyone's individual, and a lot of athletes actually struggle to absorb what they need at the right rate as well. So it is something on an individual basis we could look at, but anybody else get GI distress if they want to talk about it? It's what dietitians talk about. Don't be shy. But let me talk about some of the other pitfalls that are typical. Well, if you guys want to point out some of the things that you may think are or need help with, but some of the things I just came up with is just the first one I talked about right off the bat was not training like you're going to race. So in other words, you wake up, maybe doing ultra endurance and you wake up on the day of your Ironman or whatever and you decide, I want to be out there for so many extra hours and I haven't really trained that long, so maybe I should have an extra breakfast or more breakfast. And you never know how that could affect you. So that's the one that I pointed out right off the bat. Another big one is saving calories. A lot of people want to race at their most optimal weight and their leanest, and they think that if they eat all these sports nutrition products with lots of sugar and all the sugars, that they're going to gain weight. So they tend to say, well, you know what, I'm going to make up those calories anyway later on in the day, so why eat more calories than I need? And not having the right amount of fuel can actually cause you to gain more weight. Research has actually shown athletes that typically do try to save calories to lose weight because the sports nutrition calories are very high, that they end up eating so much more at the end of the day and they end up gaining weight. And I mean, for those of you that have coached people.
Wait, can you back up and say that again? Because I didn't quite follow that. You're saying,
Yeah, research has actually shown that athletes that do not fuel correctly during their workouts,
okay,
yeah, because they're saving calories to lean up more for race day, actually land up retaining more fat. Because the body sees itself as starving if you're not fueling properly. And when you starve your body, anything you eat, even if it's grass or seaweed, is going to get stored as fat later on. So for those of you that try and save calories during training days because you don't want to have those multiple extra calories because you're still working in a leaving phase, you're actually doing detriment to what you're potentially trying to reach. Does that not make sense?
that makes perfect sense.
In fact, think about, I always tell my clients, think about cows. Cows are fat. What do cows eat? Grass. And they graze on grass all day long. Why are they fat? Because they actually are starved, and then they put into pasture to be fed, and then they're taken out of pasture, and then they put into pasture, and then they're taken out. So starving, feeding. And they actually do that on purpose, to make them fat on purpose, to sell them for more money. So just think about it, when you're at a starving point, even if you eat grass, you have much more potential to store, because your body is so hungry, starving for fuel, that it will hold on and put it all in a reserve tank.
What would be like starving? So they like 4
Yeah, we'll
hours?
talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to answer that right away, so
Okay.
I want you to ask questions while we go along. For an athlete, actually starving is as little as 2.5 hours. Especially, I mean, you guys can tell me what your distances are, just so that I've got an idea of what's going on. Whose specialties are ultra endurance, like Ironman or above? Anybody?
Most of these are short courses.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought most of you probably were. But starving for ultra endurance, and I'm not talking about during training, I'm talking about all the time, can be as little as 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours. And for some of you that have worked with me, you know my philosophy is to be constantly eating. Now, not grazing, because there's a difference between constantly eating and giving yourself that 2-hour break. So you eat, you wait a while, you eat again, you wait a while, you eat again, and basically you should really have an even energy throughout the day. So not to have big meals and think of the in-betweeners as snacks, it's more about little mini meals throughout the day. But you need those breaks in between as well, because you want just enough to get a little boost in energy, but not empty like calories that are just like constant, because that's considered grazing. And then as soon as you move away from that, your body goes into withdrawal, and then next time you eat, you store. So you really have to find that evenness of energy throughout the day.
Why is it stored as fat and not something else?
The reason why we store fat is because of our genetics. We're based on hunter-gatherers, okay? So even though we have much revolved since the hunter-gatherer days, we still have very similar genes to hunter-gatherers. And the tendency for them, just think about their lifestyle, hunting, gathering, and the fat was needed because there were long periods of starvation. But because we've evolved so much, those months and months of starvation became down to weeks, came down to days, and in our lives comes down to hours. Now, that we have a tendency to store, even if we already have a reserve tank, okay, so the body sees, and what is defined as starving, the other thing other than timing, is if you're not having the right amount of carbohydrates. The reason why the body sees that as starving. So you could eat as many calories of protein as you want, your body would still be starving if you're not getting the right amount of carbs. The reason being is that when carbohydrates metabolize, so the biochemistry, I'm going a little bit into biochemistry now, but when carbohydrates metabolize, the process is called oxygenation. And it's the byproduct of that biochemistry pathway that allows fat to burn. So in other words, if you don't have any carbohydrates present, your body cannot burn any fat. Okay? So if it's not burning fat, what is it burning? Muscle. Because that can burn. Muscle can burn without the oxygenation. Fat burns only in that fuel of the oxygenation of carbohydrates. So if you don't have any carbohydrates present, and I'm going to talk about the different kind of carbohydrates for you to understand that, but so if you don't have any carbohydrates present, your body can't burn protein that you're eating, because that doesn't form glycogen, but it can go inside and find your own muscle to burn. Now, when you break down muscle, what are you doing? Lowering your metabolism even more. So it's like a vicious circle. The more muscle you break down, the lower your metabolism is, the less fat you can break down. Break down more muscle. So people that go on high protein diets and don't eat carbs because they're trying to lose weight, they'll lose weight, but they're not going to lose fat. So that's where body composition comes into play. So this is what I was saying, that last my show and tell. I'm getting old. So for those of you that have seen me speak before, here is my